Hello, I'm Angie Everett, and I have worked for North Mississippi Medical Center for 30 years, and I have had one emergent admission to the hospital in those 30 years, and that was last February 2019. So I'm just here today to tell you my story of what I'm calling surviving sepsis. So I remember that night very vividly. I felt great. My oldest daughter she had a soccer game that night, and I was at the soccer game. I was cheering her on. I felt great after the soccer game. We went out to dinner. I had a normal dinner that I would have eaten any night of any time. And then we got home around 9 o'clock that night, and probably about an hour later, right about bedtime, I started feeling very nauseated. That's how it started. I started feeling very sick at my stomach. And then that just sort of cascaded into what I call this chain of events where I knew that something was not right. I know my body well enough to know that something wasn't right. And at first I thought that I was just getting a stomach virus, or I had eaten something that did not agree with me. But then I had an episode where I fainted, which is very unlike me. And when I got into the bed after I had fainted, I started having very severe leg cramps. At that point, I knew that it was either I was getting very dehydrated or something was going on, but I knew that there was something going on in my body that was not normal. And it was at that point where I asked my husband to take me to our local emergency room. I was not there long, and they came in and told me that I had met all of the criteria for sepsis shock. So I was immediately then transported over to Tupelo, my home hospital, to then go into the step-down unit. I can only describe it as there was this chain reaction and this chain of events that were going on inside my body that I recognized, but then that created this chain reaction of a very specific response from the care team on exactly what intentional care they needed to provide me. That was part assessment, it was part test, it was part treatment, and it was part monitoring all of my symptoms. I can remember in those 3 days of being in the hospital, of course, they were monitoring all of my vital signs. They made sure to do tests to try and identify where the infection was coming from, and then also making sure that I was not getting into trouble specifically around my blood pressure and my heart rate and how my body was responding and reacting to the infection, which is really what sepsis is. It's just your body having an overreaction to an infection. I'll tell you that the 3 days that I was in the hospital when I was discharged, and I looked back over the course of my care and my story, I can only describe my recovery as this. It was like that I was a part of my recovery, in that I had to identify something wasn't right with my body. I had to try to quickly seek medical attention. But then every caregiver that came across my path from the moment that I sought treatment, in their decision making, in their ordering the test and the treatments and their assessment, everything that happened, it was like each decision, each person that was involved in that process, and myself, it's like we were each one an instrument. And when I look back over the time, it was like each one of those instruments had to be played in this way, in this perfect timing, in order for there to be this music around my recovery and my really my life being saved. So that is my story of recovering and surviving sepsis.